Have you ever looked at your to-do list and instantly felt stress? Maybe your chest got tight or your mind starts to race, or maybe you even feel like shutting down and just going to scroll on your phone. Or maybe you're like me and just have a bunch of revved up energy and go into frantic action. Well, today we're going to talk about how a to-do list is not the cause of your current stress. And it's not even about what is in front of us, but it often represents something that is based on our past experiences. Today, we're going to talk about stress and where it comes from. Welcome to Burnout Solutions, a podcast designed to help high achievers and healthcare professionals understand stress and how it can lead to burnout. Together, we'll explore how your brain and nervous system naturally work and why they sometimes hold you back, and how to overcome those challenges to fully enjoy the success you've worked so hard to create. I am your host, Mona Tippett, registered nurse, burnout coach, and resiliency educator. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. I really do appreciate all of you who are listening as I am trying to figure out all of this podcasting stuff. And I appreciate your patience and grace and your encouragement. I have heard a lot of people just patting me on the back, and I am grateful for your support in listening. So thank you so much. Let's just jump on in. So today I'm going to talk about stress and really what stress means and why your body feels it. And this is kind of a continuation about what I talked about in last week's episode with your brain and the brain sequence and parts of your brain and nervous system that take note of our experiences in our life and how they file them and when those experiences are brought back up. So let's just dive on in and get started. I love to help my clients understand that when it comes to stress and specifically a to-do list, that words on paper are just ink on paper, right? Or maybe they're pixels on a screen. And our stress is not coming from those words on a list. It's coming from your brain's interpretation of that list, shaped on what I call past painful learning. So let's just break this down. A to-do list is neutral, right? Some people can look at a to-do list and not get stressed out. Some people don't even make lists because they get stressed out. My husband has a huge list every weekend of all the things that he wants to do. And I don't even like looking at it because I think it's nearly impossible to accomplish all of that. But he honestly, miraculously does all the time. But on its own, a to-do list is just a tool, right? That's why we make it. It's a reminder of the tasks that we need to do. So our laundry, our calls we need to make, our emails, our errands, things that our kids need to be taken to. When I was working as a nurse on the floor in labor and delivery, we had sheets called the brain. And I would, at the beginning of my shift, write down everything that I needed to do and when and what time. And it was just a tool. So I think we can understand that. But the human brain doesn't treat this tool as being neutral. Instead, it loads it with meaning. And that meaning is often based on our past. And we talked about this last week a little bit, that our nervous system remembers things that happened in our past. And our amygdala and our hippocampus file those memories and bring them back up when something seems similar. So maybe you've been reprimanded for missing a deadline, or maybe you have been shamed either by yourself or other people for not doing enough, or you were made to feel lazy or inadequate for resting. And so your nervous system starts to associate unfinished tasks with danger. So often, before we even do anything, our nervous system is already bracing for the guilt of not getting it done, the fear of someone being disappointed, or if you're a recovering perfectionist like me or a perfectionist, the shame of, once again, feeling behind, that I didn't accomplish it, that I should be able to do more, that I have been able to do more in the past, that I can do more, all of those inner critic thoughts that I have. Sometimes we worry that this means something about our worth or our competence in relation to our to-do list. And this is past painful learning in action. So my body and my nervous system has learned that unfinished tasks weren't just incomplete, they were unsafe, and they really were something that meant something about me. So how did I form all of those emotions and maybe negative self-talk in my brain that my nervous system remembers and my brain offers me? And it's because today's list triggers all of those emotions that were not processed, those voices that I still haven't learned to manage. It's reacting to a backlog of past experiences. Because remember, only our prefrontal cortex remembers time, and only our prefrontal cortex takes time into consideration. And our midbrain and our hindbrain operate off of emotion and remember those experiences. So my midbrain remembers the times when I overworked, when I overachieved, and nobody noticed. It remembers the times that I tried my very best and I still felt that I wasn't enough based on other people's reactions, based on what the result was of those actions. Perfectionists are very much performance based. So, how do we know that we perform enough? Well, I don't know. How are people responding to us? How do we know when we've achieved what we've looked for? My nervous system also remembers the times that I froze or I got distracted, and then I felt ashamed or weak or ridiculous for doing that. And even sometimes my nervous system remembers that my needs weren't respected and I had to push through anyway. I had to keep working harder and give up my own needs. So the real source of stress isn't just because there are 10 things on our to-do list. It's because our brain and body have linked the tasks to a threat. These are emotional, social, mental, even physical threats. And this is a very brilliant but outdated survival system that our nervous system is using. Our nervous system is trying to protect us from criticism, shame, failure, based on what it has experienced in the past. And this is called past painful learning. So let's just give a few examples. The first is, I think about when I was working on the floor as a nurse. I would get my assignment and I would look through my patients. I had the patient list, I had my task reminders, I had my scheduled meds, I had my discharges, I had when somebody was coming in, when the doctors were meeting me, all these things, right? And it's just on paper. Sometimes it was on computer. Anyway, it's just a screen. But my body wouldn't treat it that way because in the past, this list meant that there was not enough staff to really safely do it all, or to do it in a way that I wanted to show up in the way that I wanted to. I loved taking time with my patients. And when I have all these patients, it is hard for me to do that. It also meant that I could get yelled at when something got missed, yelled at by a patient, by their family, by a doctor, by my nursing supervisor, by other nurses. And it can be a hard thing that my nervous system is paying attention to, saying, don't miss anything on this list. And you have to do this. Otherwise, there are consequences. Also, it often meant skipping lunch, skipping bathroom breaks, and still I would stay late and chart and often felt like a failure when I went home because I was not able to do what I wanted to. So let me just break down that stressful moment. In that moment, when my eyes hit the list was the trigger, and my nervous system sounded off the alarm. My nervous system isn't reacting to the list, but to the pattern and thoughts behind all of those words from my past experience. And my body is the interpreter. So, what happens? The past writes the script for what I am feeling and doing in the here and now. Okay, so let's go just a step deeper. So, when we have these emotions that rise up in stress, like frustration, urgency, fear, helplessness, shutdown, those emotions just don't sit there. They often push us to act in ways that just feel familiar, feel like things that we've done on repeat, and they're not necessarily ways that are helpful or ways in which we want to act. The stress can drive our behavior, and we form a habit loop or a pattern loop, or we form a template that is super easy for our brain and nervous system to grab when we feel that emotion again. So, in the moment, let's say you feel overwhelmed. So, what do you feel like when you feel overwhelmed? Do you even know? I encourage you to pay attention that you feel overwhelmed. So, your chest tightens, my shoulders get tight, I feel behind. And then what do? I snap at people, maybe to my children. I have a freak out, or I say and do things that I really regret. Then I feel ashamed later and think that is not who I want to be. However, my nervous system has already filed the sequence under when I feel overwhelmed, I do frantic behavior. I yell, I throw a fit, I get upset. And the more often you repeat this pattern, the more automatic it becomes. So over time, these emotions result in reaction sequences that become, like I said, behavioral templates. And as those templates are repeated day after day, they can become our personality, not because they're true, but because they are rehearsed. And this is a fascinating thing that I love helping clients with, is they just say, oh, well, this is just who I am. Well, not really. Like, personality is not permanent. It's changeable. And this is what I love helping my clients do. But let me just give an example, real life example of how I would react when I felt overwhelmed with my family. And maybe you can relate to this too. I would come home and all kids would be watching TV. I'm like, okay, trying to be really nice because that's the thoughts I'm practicing. Okay, time to turn off the TV and get our jobs done. The kitchen's a mess. Everything's out on the counter. There's dishes in the sink. Dishwasher hasn't been unloaded. All this stuff, goldfish on the carpet, popsicles melting on the counter. And I would say again, another minute later, okay, guys, turn off the TV. Time to do your jobs. And by the third time, nice mom had left because I'm still seeing the mess. Nobody's moving. Nobody's paying attention to me. And I feel unacknowledged and unappreciated, and no one's listening or paying attention. So I start barking orders. I turn off the TV. I'm slamming doors. I'm yelling and saying, hey, you guys, you have to do this. Come on, help me out. Or I'm giving someone the cold shoulder because I'm so upset that if I do talk to them, I will yell. And I don't really want to be the mean one, but in that moment, my nervous system is doing exactly what it learned. When I feel out of control, I need to get loud and take control. And it's interesting that a lot of times our patterns are things that were modeled to us or things that we just saw work and just repeat. Because what happened when I yelled? My kids finally moved. When I was nice mom, my kids weren't obeying or doing anything. And it actually was yelling that took them to take action. So part of my brain remembers, hey, when we're nice, mom, no one does anything. It isn't until we yell that we actually get done what we need to. So next time, just skip nice mom and go straight to the yelling, because that will take us to the point and that will get us the result that we want, right? However, just because people do move faster, tasks do get done, but my relational trust gets chipped away and my relationship with my children diminishes. And so at the end of the night, I go to bed and I feel awful. I have a knot in my stomach. I just think, oh, I yelled at them again. I don't want to do this. And so what I learned is that this is a protective template that my nervous system has created from yelling. It's not really a character flaw, and I did not choose this consciously. If you need more explanation on that, listen to last week's podcast. These behaviors were shaped by the past. When I was growing up, maybe I wasn't heard unless I actually raised my voice. I was the fourth of 8 children. People didn't listen to me unless I got sharp. And so this pattern actually started when I was a child. So maybe my nervous system learned that certain emotions are dangerous and it's better to override them. It's better to just act out instead of process them. However, now that survival strategy is ruining my relationships. It's maybe preventing me from showing up at work like I want to, and really affecting my personality and my identity and the legacy that I want to live in my life. And it's conflicting with my core values of who do I want to be in this moment. And honestly, it's exhausting. Stress is exhausting. And when we let these survival templates manage our life, that is when stress gets compounded daily and we become burned out. Okay, so let's move on to the best news. The best news is that although these patterns can be powerful, they are not permanent and we can change them. And even as I'm recording this podcast, I am really happy that I rarely yell at my kids anymore. Used to be on a daily basis. I, of course, am not perfect, but my yelling has significantly decreased. My freakouts have significantly decreased, and I can communicate much better with my children and get them to do what I want in a calm, content way. And when I do have a to-do list, the first thing I do say is, these are just words on a paper. It's nothing to get stressed out about. And I have been able to retrain my brain and nervous system, and I experience much less stress than I used to. And I have a whole program on that. If you're interested, it does take time, it does take work, but it can be done. However, today I'm just going to give a few little tips on how to do it. And the first step is to, 1, just notice. Just notice when you are feeling a surge of emotion. Just notice when you are dealing with past experience. I like to tell my clients, name it to tame it. And when you notice that you're having a big reaction, just pause and say, okay, this feels familiar. I think I've felt this before. Just that simple awareness helps you shift from automatic reaction to a conscious choice. Just naming the emotion, wow, I feel really frustrated here, actually acknowledges to your brain and your nervous system that, yes, I hear you. I understand the emotion you're trying to communicate to me. And when we name it, it tames it, and your body says, okay, I don't have to keep giving you that chemical to feel that emotion because you get it. You are hearing me and you acknowledge that I'm freaking out and telling you that this is dangerous, and you're getting the memo. The second step is to practice a self-regulation technique. You can practice self-compassion and say, of course I'm overwhelmed right now. That tone or this experience reminded me of all the times that I wasn't heard, or etc. And just remind yourself, you're not being weak right now. You are being a human. This is your human nervous system and brain reacting just like it should. And then the last is to get curious and not judgmental. You can say, what is the story that my nervous system is telling me right now? Why does it belong in this moment? Does it? Or is this just an old experience that it's trying to repeat? This does take practice. It's often much easier to look back at a situation and use metacognition, which is thinking about our thinking, to analyze what we did and what we want to change in the future. We can also ask ourselves the question, who do I want to be right now? How do I want to respond? You don't have to act out every feeling. You don't have to be the person who stress shapes the way that you are acting and who you are to be. You can become the author of a new emotional behavioral template. One awareness at a time will help us create different patterns. This is what I help people do all the time. I love doing it. And I can help you see what you did in the past and help change what you want to do in the future using your brain and nervous system to reprogram. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, I would love to hear from you. And I just want to summarize and give my final thoughts that our stress that we are feeling in the moment is from our past painful learning. And these stress responses today are built on a mountain of unresolved emotional moments in the past that our nervous system brings to our attention in the moment because it feels like it's helpful and is going to help us. I love to say your brain and nervous system are trying to help you, but they're doing it in an incorrect way and often in a way that is sabotaging your behavior. And just know that this is pathophysiology, this is biology, this is being a human, and we can learn to retrain our brain and nervous system. You are not broken, you are just patterned, and we can change those patterns. Those patterns were built to protect you, but you get to choose which one stays and which ones you can gently release and retrain and go away. So the next time your stress feels really big, just pause, take a breath, and remember, it's probably not about right now, but it's just my past painful learning, asking to be seen, heard, and healed. I hope this was helpful, and let me know how this goes. Give it some practice, and I will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in to Burnout Solutions. If you found today's episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And when you're ready to stop working harder and start working differently, head on over to my website at www.monatippets.com. That's TIPPETS. And grab my free resources on rewiring your brain and nervous system for less stress and more ease. Hope to connect with you soon. Take care.